to limit the movement of the red horse. The third would be c2 equals to 1, so that the right chariot can get some development too. And the last would be p3 plus 1. So this is a very long board, and we shall go through the variations one by one. In the first variation, Black would choose to develop his left chariot as a riverbank chariot, so that he could patrol the riverbank and discourage red from trying to attack from the central file by pushing p5 plus 1. So what would happen if red did continue to do so? So at this point in time, two sub-variations were discussed. The first would be p3 plus 1, and the second one would be r equals to 3. Now r equals to 3 is not advised, although Black would intend to capture the pawn over here and then play c2 plus 4, so that the black chariot and cannon would now be threatening red's central file and the pawn rank at the same time. So these were the moves that were given in the book, because to prevent black from pushing c2 plus 4, red could easily trade away his chariots in this manner. So if black chose to trade chariots, for example, this horse would be a problematic issue, and red could still further his attack along the central file. So this is why r equals to 3 is not advocated at this point. So in the book, p3 plus 1 was given. This would be the double ranked chariots. Red must make this move, because if he didn't, this chariot would not have any good intersections to move to. So this is one of the issues that is often encountered when somebody tries to play the double ranked chariots. Black could defend in this manner, attacking along the central file as planned, and black would choose to trade chariots with r1 equals to 4. Now at this point in time, would attacking c2 would black have fared better by attacking with c2 plus 4? Red would be able to make this move and attack black's pawn rank in this manner. So after making this move, the red chariot will be prepared to play r4 equals to 8 to threaten the black cannon, which is trapped in this corner. Now if the cannon captured the red horse, this horse would also get development, and black would have wasted 2 moves. So this would not be an ideal situation for black, and c2 plus 4 will be considered to be a brash attack at this point in time. Hence, black would try to relieve some of the pressure with r1 equals to 4. Red would choose to trade chariots. So at this point in time, red chariot the red chariot moved to this point. So red would have considered to have the advantage, because black's left horse, which would be one of its weaknesses in this formation, would be now in trouble, and black would have a hard time dealing with this with the ranked chariot over here. And there would not be, and as for the chariot, black's riverbank chariot, there will be not any good positions for it to continue to move to, and the efficiency of this chariot would be greatly diminished. So red would have a significant advantage at this point in time. So IA plus 4 would not be advisable at this point in time. The second variation that was given in the book was p7 plus 1, whereby black would choose to deal with the issue of the left horse at this so early in the game. Now with p7 plus 1, the development of the red horse at this point would theoretically be slowed down. However, usually when red plays the ranked chariot or even the double ranked chariots, red would signify that he was prepared to attack along the center. So pushing the pawn at this point in time would not seem to be very efficient. Now there were two variations that were given at this point in time. The first would be p5 plus 1 and the second would be p7 plus 1. So the main line was p5 plus 1. So let us inspect p7 plus 1. Black will make this move, hoping to play c2 equals to 6 on the next move, so that one of red's ranked chariots would be forced to move away. But however, in the book, r6 plus 5 was given, and there was no mention of advancing the red chariot to the river rank. Instead, black continued with h7 plus 8, and it was said that black would have the advantage in the ensuing game because black had already fortified his defenses and the horse would be ready to attack. So it would seem that p7 plus 1 would not be the good idea. Instead, p5 plus 1 was advised, whereby red would choose to attack along the central file as initially planned. So black would continue with c2 plus 2 to try to fortify his riverbank. If need be, p3 plus 1 can be played, whereby the cannon will also fortify the riverbank rank. At this point in time, pinning the black horse and the black chariot will be a very important move for red to make, because black was prepared to play p7 plus 1 to gain initiative. It would not be a good idea to attack with c5 plus 4 at this time. And as can be seen, the riverbank cannon would be able to attack the red horse at this point, which would be one of the weaknesses in red's formation at this point in time. So black can be satisfied with this outcome. Now, if no matter how red would respond, his formation will become weakened, and although the central chariot would seem to be very overbearing, it cannot do much at this point in time. So black can be satisfied with this outcome. Hence jumping the gun to capture the central pawn with c5 plus 4 would not be advocated. Instead, as mentioned earlier, red would choose to pin the black horse and chariot at this point in time. So the rest of the moves would be at this point in time, it would be a very even situation on the board. So red will be applying pressure on the black chariot and the horse at this point, but he would have an attack going on the central file. So it will be a rather even game, and black can be satisfied with this outcome. Now this will be variation 2 in the board. A little reminder, the first variation was IA plus 4, the second variation was p7 plus 1, and the third variation that we will now discuss would be c2 equals to 1, where black would choose to move his cannon to the edge file so that he could develop his chariot as a file chariot. And red will continue to attack from the central file. The first move, it was advocated for black to attack with I8 plus 6, and it was not a good idea to move e3 plus 5 so early in the game, because if e3 plus 5 were played, black would simply move r4 plus 5, and again the congenital weakness in black's formation would thus be exploited. So if black chose to move i8 plus 6, the pawn would be protected and black would have covered up one of his weaknesses. So when black plays i8 plus 6, there were 3 variations for red. The first would be r6 plus 7, and which would be the advocated move. Now, this move would disallow black to link his elephants up on the central file. If r6 plus 5 were played, red would try to trade material. And as can be seen, black would have seized the initiative from red. The power of the edge cannon would be realized and it will become an efficient move. So at this point in time, red will be in deep trouble because the chariot over here will be threatening to capture the cannon, and this chariot will be threatening to capture both horses. So red will probably lose material and also some advantage to black. Black can be very satisfied with this outcome. So that is why r6 plus 5 was not a good idea. h3 plus 5 to continue attacking from the central file was also discussed. Black will continue with r equals to 7 to capture the pawn, protect his horse, and attack the red elephant and also the red's horse and the central file. So the black chariot will now be positioned very nicely. And as mentioned in the previous video, one of the best ways of countering an enemy who is attacking with the central pawn and central link horses will be to counter with the central cannon of his own. So black could be satisfied with such a position going on into the mid-game phase. If red continued with h5 plus 4, there will be many ways for black to counter with, say, r7 equals to 3 or capturing the red pawn, etc, etc. Now, these variations were very complicated and they were not presented in the book. So that is why r6 plus 7 was advocated, whereby black would be prevented from linking his elephants on the central file, thus weakening black's central file. And this would be in accordance to red's plan to attack the central file so early in the game. r8 equals 7 was given, and again the power of the edge cannon is seen at this point. So at this point in time, black would have considered to have a successful opening against red, because red's attack along the central file cannot continue smoothly, and if either one of the horses is changed, his attack along the central file would theoretically be weakened or demolished. So at this point in time, c2 plus 1 is considered to be a viable alternative. And in the last main variation, p3 plus 1 was given, and this would be perhaps the most complicated of the variations that was discussed in the chapter. Okay, now after playing p3 plus 1, the first move that was given in the book was p5 plus 1, whereby red will continue to attack along the central file as planned. It would not be a good idea at this point in time to play r9 equals to 6 as could be seen in the earlier variations. If r9 plus 6 were played, black would take the opportunity to play the double-headed snake pawns, p3 plus 1, p7 plus 1, and once this is played, the cannon can be moved to the riverbank to fortify and discourage red from attacking or from pushing his central pawn forward again, which would be a central issue in red's attack. So this can be seen once black was unable to push his pawn across the river, or black would simply capture it. Red would have to try to attack with the ranked chariot, and since the chariot was attacking, the horse would simply move away. Now at this point in time, three sub variations were given. The first would be r4 plus 3, r4 minus 3 to retreat the chariot to the pawn rank and discourage h8 plus 7 from happening. So if this was so, black would simply play e3 plus 5 and have a very nice defensive, staunch defensive positioning. Red's pieces on the other hand would seem to be cramped and it would take some effort to be developed. So the second sub variation would be to capture the central pawn, and if this was so, black would simply counter with c6 equals to 5, because this horse had not moved, so red could not play c8 equals to 5 to fortify his central file. So c6 equals to 5 was advocated for black. It would not be a good idea to capture the trade material at this point in time, because red would be actually better in this situation. So after playing c6 equals to 5, black would start to terrorize, red would start to terrorize black's right flank. This would threaten to capture the red chariot. And at this point in time, black would command a huge advantage, because if the cannon retreated, black would simply capture it for free and then capture the red chariot. So that is why black could counter very aggressively and nicely with c6 equals to 5. So threatening to trade material with c5 equals to 4 would also not be a good option at this point. And the last sub-variation that was given was c4 equals to 3 to move the chariot to safety. Now black will continue his attack. And black would have a nice situation to his favor. The reason for this is because one of the red's horses had already been traded away, and it would be very hard for red to try to attack with only one horse going on the central file. The black cannon would now also be able to coordinate an attack with the black chariot on red's right flank. And if red tried to attack from the central file, black will also have the option of countering with the central cannon. So the prospects for black would look very rosy at this point in time. So that is why one of the best options in this situation would be to retreat the chariot back to his pawn rank, but it'll be a lost in tempo for red, because he had advanced his chariot and then retreated his chariot again. So black would simply, as mentioned earlier, black would simply move, consolidate his defenses with e3 plus 5. The chariot will now be able to move r1 equals to 4 to threaten an exchange of chariots, and thus further weakening any possible counter attacks by possible attack by red along the central file. So black can be judged to have a successful opening in this subvariation. So back to r9 equals 6. As mentioned earlier, r9 equals to 6 at this point would not be a good idea. Instead, red must push his central pawn forward. So there are several factors to be considered when pushing the pawn or developing the chariot as mentioned earlier. Now, at this point in time, it will also be better for black to attack with the pawn rank cannon. This would limit the movement of the red horses, and it's a very aggressive and proactive counter by black. It would not be a good idea at this point to attack the pawn rank with r8 plus 6 instead of c2 plus 4. If r8 plus 6 were played, red could counter very nicely in this manner. So this would not only disallow black from playing c2 plus 4, it will also discourage black from capturing the pawn. Red would also have the option of playing pushing p7 plus 1 to try to capture the pawn. If black captured the pawn, red could continue with c7 equals to h7 plus 5 to link the horses up and attack the black chariot that had just captured the pawn. So it will be a gain of momentum for red. So after playing c8 plus 1, black will choose to target the weakness of this cannon and play the edge cannon of his own so that his chariot can play r1 equals to 2. Red will continue in this manner. And again, as mentioned, red will threaten to attack the black chariots since his own chariots were linked and there could be a trade of chariots. So at this point in time, although it would seem to be a bad idea, black could actually continue with c8 equals to 7. This would have been better than retreating his chariot. If black retreated his chariot, the pawn would get across the river and red would actually have a better situation, would have increased his lead in the game at this point in time. The black pawn, although menacing, cannot move because this intersection, and these intersections, all three possible intersections have been covered by red. So black would have to deal with the issue of losing his horse, and the black horse can only retreat to h3 minus 4. So red would have a better. Red would be better in this situation. That is why it is advocated for black to capture the pawn aggressively instead. And red will continue with h3 plus 5, forcing the chariot to retreat. The pawn will be crossed. Check. And red would have to fortify his defenses at this point. This is a necessary move to make, and red cannot be aggressive with p7 plus 1. If p7 plus 1 were played, black would gain material with r7 plus 1. Now, the red cannon and horse cannot move, because if it moved, the black cannon would be delivering a check. And there will be no way to protect the central cannon. If red tried to move his central cannon away, black will be sure to gain material with r7 equals to 5. If the cannon moved away, it will be a check with r5 plus 1, and there will be many options for black to continue with. Hence, p7 plus 1 at this point would not be a good idea. And e7 plus 5, e7 plus 5 to fortify or consolidate red's own central file is needed, whereby black will continue with r7 equals to 3, and this will be a nice intermediate move, and the black chariot will be forced back to the corner. So red can be satisfied with this situation, and red will have a slight advantage at this point in time. Red will probably have to continue to protect his horse sorry, by playing an advisor, and although the cannons are cramped on this file, it would also prevent the black chariot from being developed. So red would have a slight advantage in this situation. Hence, this is why r8 plus 6 is not advocated. Now, and it would be better for black to attack with the cannon instead of the chariot. So r9 plus 6, r8 equals to 6 is advocated at this point, and it would not be a good idea to play p7 plus 1, because if p7 plus 1 were played, the pawns would be traded, and red would have to play h7 plus 5. Otherwise, once the pawn were to reach the enemy's pawn rank, red would be in deep trouble. If r4 plus 2 were played, red could attack in this manner, and black would have the initiative going to the game. So h7 plus 5 has to be played. Black would attack in this manner and prevent the horse from playing h5 plus 7. Red will try to chase away the black pawn. It would not be a good idea to play r9 equals to 7, because black would simply try to trade material, chasing the chariot away, and black would have the upper hand in this sub-variation, because first of all, red's attack from the central file would be foiled. Black would have an extra pawn so early in the game, and it will be placed in a very strategic position, and the development of both the black chariots are open. Perhaps black's only weakness at this point in time, the left horse, can be easily dealt with. So black would have a significant upper hand in this situation. That is why it is not a good idea to play r9 equals to 7, and instead r9 equals to 6 is advocated, and black will continue to capture another pawn, and black would have seized control of this variation, of the situation on the board in this variation. So just to repeat, the sub-variations here are a little bit confusing. p7 plus 1 is not advocated. Instead, r9 equals to 6 has to be played to prevent the black pawn from becoming a menace. So in the main line of the fourth variation, black will continue to attack in this manner, and red will try to trade cannons so early in the game. This will be this will force black to show his hand, because the great cannon will now be attacking both the black chariot and the cannon at the same time. However, instead of trading cannons as red would wish to happen, r equals to 7 would be the better move. If black did choose to trade cannons, which is not advisable, red would still manage to have a very nice formation preparing to attack the central file, and this would be a fork. By the black, by the red horse. And if red captured the horse, red would have now prepared to checkmate with r2 plus 3 for the elbow horse checkmate. So at this point in time, black would be forced to defend, but no matter how it defend, the presence of the double ranked chariots would be a major issue for black to handle. So although red would have lost the horse, this sacrifice would be well worth it. Hence, it would not be a good idea for black to trade cannons as what red would hope to happen. Instead, r8 equals to 7 will allow black to firmly hold the initiative in hand. Capture. So black's it will be a pseudo sacrifice by black earlier on, because red will now be able to gain back lost material, and the cramped positioning of the position of the red cannons and the undeveloped red horses would mean that black would now have seized the initiative away from red. So red would simply try to sacrifice and try to start another attack along the central file. And at this point in time, black could be considered to have a significant advantage, because no matter how red would continue to move, black can counter very easily, and red's attack along the central file would be greatly inhibited. So this is why playing p3 plus 1 at this point in time, which should be the fourth major variation, would be advisable, or would be a viable option for black. Now, a short summary. This has been a rather long video. In the second file of chapter 7, red would attack with the double ranked chariots and also proper horses for an attack along the central file. There were 4 variations. It would not be advisable for black to play i8 plus 4. p7 plus 4 would be a so-so variation. Instead, black will fare better with c2 equals to 1 or p3 plus 1, which would be a very complicated situation. But if black were able to were able to play correctly, p3 plus 1 will bring about many advantages. So I hope you have enjoyed this long video. It's the first day of the new year in 2020, and I hope that this video can accompany you today as we start the new year. And Happy New Year again. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and have a nice day ahead.